On today's show, we're going to dissect every notable running back prospect in the 2026 NFL Draft. Renner will put each prospect into tiers ranging from the S tier, the best, the elite, to the F tier, the worst of the class. We'll start with what seems to be the easy one. Jeremiyah Love, 6 foot, 212, everyone's number one running back prospect in this class. But what stuck out to me, Renner, not just everyone's number one running back. A lot of people have this guy in the top 1, top 2, top 3 of all prospects, regardless of position in this draft. Renner, what tier would you have Jeremiyah Love in? And I'm curious how you have him overall, independent of position also.
Put him in the S tier. This guy is a special running back prospect, special athlete. I mean, he ran a 4.36 at the combine. And what I love is like he's competitive. He goes in as a guy who's, like you said, top 3 on a lot of boards, so likely top 10 pick, probably a lock at this point. He ran a 40. He goes through the drills at the combine. When's the last time we saw that, right? Most of the guys opt out at the combine, maybe wait till their pro day, or don't even do it all together when they're in that tier of prospect. I love that he's gotten better seemingly every single year. I think there's been a thing for him to work on each and every year. He's gotten a lot stronger over the course of his career. He's improved a lot as a receiver this past season. I think the one weakness to his game is probably between the tackles, maximizing runs. He can get a little dancy. He doesn't always set up blocks with the pacing, and the sort of angle that it takes for the particular run concept. But his shiftiness, his big playability is special. I mean, he's Jahmyr Gibbs-esque in that regard, in that it can be nothing and it can go 70. Like he has that as good as any prospect in recent memory. And that's what everyone wants. People, 3 or 4 yard gains, defenses are almost giving those to you nowadays. That's not what offenses are trying to find out of their running game. They want the guys that can go 50, 60. They want big play threats that really force defenses to adjust. That's what Jeremiyah Love is.
Yeah, if I could nitpick one thing about him, is that he's just a little bit boom busty. And I think that you kind of alluded to that. So is Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah.
But Jeremiyah Love is like, what? I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was 198 pounds, and Jeremiyah Love is 212. So, and I'm with you in that he will get more of those chunk runs because the NFL gives them to you, like you mentioned. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot of analysis here. I mean, Jeremiyah Love in his off-field makeup is just off the charts. It's like Saquon Barkley. He's almost like autistic, like in the good sense. Like he is a perfectionist, and he's talked about this like publicly. His dad, I think, has talked about it. He wants to be the greatest. He checks like virtually every box as a prospect.
I want to ask you, Renner, about Jeremiyah Love versus some of the great running back prospects we've seen. I'm not talking about NFL production, but how would you compare as a prospect, better or worse, Jeremiyah Love versus Bijan Robinson as a prospect?
I think Bijan was slightly better, just because he's so shifty and so effective as a receiver, as you've seen in the NFL, in a way that Love's going to be very good as a receiver, but just Bijan, you already saw it. So I think Bijan just slightly better compared to Genty last year. I think I'd probably rather have Love just in terms of the home run hitting ability. Mm-hmm. But Genty, it was just for today's game, but Genty probably more of a complete back.
What about Jahmyr Gibbs as a prospect versus Jeremiyah Love?
I think Jeremiyah Love I prefer pretty comfortably there. Gibbs, I mean, he's held up so well. But sub 200 pound backs, just the career length of those guys I worry about.
All right. And where do you think Jeremiyah Love in this class for you out of any position?
In terms of just raw grade, he was, I believe, the 3rd highest raw grade I gave out.
Yeah. And so, I know a lot of people think he's going to Tennessee at 4, which I think would be interesting, but it would shock me if he got past 7, right? 7 is the Commanders. 5 is the Giants, 4 is the Titans. I mean, for a running back to go in the top 7 these days is just so exciting from a workload perspective. I understand it didn't work out for Ashton Genty, but yeah, I mean, if you want Jeremiyah Love in fantasy this year, it's likely going to cost a round 1-2 turn pick there. All right. Let's go to another Notre Dame guy, Jadarian Price, 5'11", 203. Of course, we didn't get to see a lot of Jadarian Price because he was playing with or behind Jeremiyah Love. Jadarian Price never had more than 120 carries in a season. Renner, what tier would you have Mr. Price in?
I would put him in the B tier. When Jeremiyah Love wasn't, there's a reason Jeremiyah Love didn't get that many touches. And it's because you legitimately wanted to get Jadarian Price touches too. There wasn't a big drop off in production when Love came off the football field. Now, again, he's 4.49 speed, 10.4 broad jump. He's not the pure explosive threat that Jeremiyah Love is, but those are darn good numbers too. And he did 21 reps on the bench at 203 pounds. You look at this guy, and he is pretty much pure muscle. I am not worried about that 203 number whatsoever. He runs extremely hard, and he gets north and south really well. I think that's his biggest superpower, and why I feel so good about him as a B tier early contributor, can start right away for someone, is he runs the way it takes to run at the NFL level. He's not looking for home runs. He's more than willing to just hit a crease between the tackles as hard as can be and take 4 yards out of it. So for being, not a starter, for being not, prototypical size, he's about as good as you can be with those two things in terms of how his tape was. And he was an awesome kick returner for his career. 3 kick return touchdowns on 22 returns. That is an insane rate for anyone. So he can add value there as well. And I assume, given the kick returns nowadays and the value of them, that he'll do that right away.
Yeah, Renner and I were at the game against USC, both in the end zone, as Jadarian Price returned 106 yards or something. I mean, it might have been 103 in the rain. It was so awesome. The big question on Jadarian Price is going to be pass game.
Yep.
Obviously, he was limited just by virtue of playing in the same backfield as Jeremiyah Love. His playing time was limited. He only had 15 career catches. And I've heard some people knock his pass blocking. What say you, Mike Renner, about Jadarian Price's ability to play in the passing game in the NFL?
I actually think as a pure receiver, he's better than a lot of guys in this class. He can actually catch. I think he catches the ball well. He never dropped a pass in college, despite, obviously not being utilized a bunch. The pass pro, I think, is more just technique. He wants it. He's willing. He'll stick his nose in it. You just see him whiff a handful of times. And again, they don't really coach that at the collegiate level. They don't spend practice time on blitz pickup more often than not. So it's something that he'll get better at in the NFL. I wouldn't even put it in the worrisome tier of him. Even though the size, he may never be elite at it, I think he can get better.
So much of the running back production in fantasy comes down to landing spot. And what everybody wants to happen, who's a Jadarian Price fan, is for the Seahawks to take Jadarian Price at 32 overall. If that happens, this dude's ADP is going to go through the absolute roof. So we'll be watching closely there what Seattle does at 32 overall. Let's go to the third running back we're going to talk about, Mike Washington, 6'1", 223 out of Arkansas. Absolutely broke the combine. I mean, if you want an athletic freak, Mike Washington is your guy. Renner, where would you have Mike Washington in the tiers?
I have him in my D tier.
Oh, no. Not like this. Not like this.
3. I assume he comes off the board higher than that, just given the sheer, necessity. Like there's I actually only have 2 backs in my S through C tiers because, and that's me not even trying to be really a hater and like saying positional value. That's more just how I think the NFL sees the position. And then my evals on them. Freak of nature, right? 4.33, 39-inch vertical, 6'9", 6'3" cone, 17 bench press reps, and he has a 6'10" wingspan at 6'1", 223. I mean, the guy is maybe the closest thing to like a Derrick Henry that we've seen since Derrick Henry from a pure what he looks like standpoint. But then it's like, why did he spend 3 years at Buffalo and 1 year at New Mexico State and never crack 700 yards in any of those seasons? He's 23 this summer. So is at Arkansas his first productive season of his career. I think he can be a productive NFL back. I think when he gets out in space, his ability to use those long arms, to stiff arm, the explosiveness you really see, and he has good feet between the tackles. I think he does get in and out of points of attack well. He's just not particularly violent at that size. And there's big issues I see with fumbles. He had 7 fumbles on 311 attempts the past 2 years, 10 for his career. 8 drops on 81 catchable in his career. He's not a passing game weapon. And I wanted him to drag more people between the tackles. I wanted him to really be this guy's specimen, right? I think he could be, but at this point in his career, with how much football he's played already, 5 years in college, I don't know if that is ever going to be who he is. And he didn't break a ton of tackles out in space either. He's more just when he has a bunch of space, he can eat up ground in a hurry. So for all those reasons, I think he's kind of more of a committee back. And I worry about the fumbles really limiting him at the next level of even seeing the football field, because NFL teams don't want to put up with that.
It's almost like the college coaches are telling us about Mike Washington, because he played at so many different colleges and he was never a guy that a team committed to as like a high volume feature back.
Mm-hmm.
He played at Buffalo, New Mexico State, Arkansas. And I know that players bounce around now more than they used to, but he was never like a super high volume workhorse at any of those spots. He had a lot of coaches. All of them diagnosed him as a rotational back, a big back who runs small, fumbles, drops passes, but has an elite workout. Niall Davis, Carlos Williams, Latavius Murray, like I feel like we've fallen for this before. And I feel like we don't fall for these guys as much as we used to.
I've heard the Latavius Murray comp. My comp in my head was Isaac Guerendo, just like a guy that tested off the charts and NFL didn't love. The thing to me on Mike Washington is we mentioned, 6'1", 233, runs 4.33. He didn't make that many big plays in college. Like you would think with that, like Isaac Guerendo was out there making some big plays at least in college. Mike Washington did not make big plays consistently despite that athletic testing at the college level. So sad to see it, but Renner with the D tier here on Mike Washington. Let's go to another guy who has been rumored to be in the Seahawks range, at least, a local guy for them, Jonah Coleman, 5'8", 220, started his career at Arizona, logged early production there, finished the last 2 years at University of Washington. Renner, what do you think of Jonah Coleman?
I have him in my F tier.
Oh, no.
And now that's like, I think F tier, I started calling like 5th rounders F tier. I think that's where I would value him. But he's a unique body type, right? He's 5'8", 220. He's built like I think that's like what Ray Davis was coming out. That sort of build, bowling ball build, and really hard to bring down for corners. I think his best runs are when he can get out to the edge and be one-on-one with the corner and safety. And that's when you see he's got some really good feet, low center of gravity, good contact balance out in space. I just worry that he really doesn't have juice. And one of these guys that no pre-draft testing, didn't do the 40. The only thing he did pre-draft was 22 bench press reps, which again is probably telling of the athlete he is. It would probably be like mid 4.6s. I would peg him as, just doesn't have that much top end speed. And then for all that, he doesn't want to really bring it between the tackles. It's one of my favorite things about that I've want to watch of running back is, do you stick your nose in it between a guard and a tackle, right? Are you willing to just drive? And I trend more towards the guys that are, and because it's just something you have to do at the NFL level. There's so many unclean runs you'll get in the NFL that you got to just get 3 yards out of instead of sitting in the backfield. And Coleman, his ability to drag a defensive lineman, drag a defensive tackle, I just didn't really see it. So good back, late day 3 though. I think he can catch. I think he's actually one of the better pass game options too in terms of what he can do out in space there. But I see him as nothing more of a real committee back.
I was going to say he weighs 220, and he had 25 catches in 2023. He had 23 catches in 2024, and this past year he had 31 catches. Maybe that could be his role as like a Samaje Perine,
yes,
or something like that.
That's good.
But not a guy that we want to feed the ball because he's not going to give us any big play potential.
Right.
I think calling card of pass protection, or at least being able to do it, is at least a sign for early career production. And if he lands in the right spot, and yeah, Renner sounds like has a fifth round grade on him, given the class. And, I would not shock me if Jonah Coleman went on day 2 in this draft. It would not shock me. And if that happens and he can get on the field early, we know that at the running back position, so much of fantasy is just opportunity. And, guys that can pass protect like Jonah Coleman have at least a chance. So I totally hear Renner on that evaluation. I just think there's a chance he gets on the field early, maybe earlier than some of these other guys, but we'll see where he goes if he ends up going on day 2 or not. Let's go to Seth McGowan. This is one that Evan highlighted in our rookie mock we did last week. Hopefully you guys caught that, but Evan was on Seth McGowan as a sleeper type, 6 foot, 223 out of Kentucky. Renner, what do you think of Seth McGowan?
It's actually crazy. He and Mike Washington were both at New Mexico State in 2024. And I have him ahead of Mike Washington because he's actually more productive than Mike Washington was that last year. And he runs hard. The guy has an interesting backstory. He had kicked out of Oklahoma for felony robbery in 2021, spent 3 months in jail, had to go to community college, came back to New Mexico State, then Kentucky this past year, and not super productive, but Kentucky's offensive line and basically was just overmatched in the SEC. When he has space, he is violent, he is physical, and he tested off the charts. He ran a 4.49, 42.5-inch vertical, 10.11 broad jump at over 220 pounds. It's a big boy, runs really hard. I'm with Evan. I think this guy has intriguing potential to be a short yardage goal line back in the NFL with those sorts of traits, but turns 25 in October. He can't catch a cold. He had 5 fumbles himself the past 2 years. These are, again, that's why I'm not getting super excited about any of these guys. There's big warts here. And especially when you add in the felony robbery, it's like he may not come off the board until late day 3 with all those things.
That's what I'm worried about, is that like he's 7th to PFA, on a lot of boards, or maybe not even on a lot of teams' boards.
For Renner, and again, Renner doesn't have a great grade on him, but in this running back class, Renner does have McGowan as his 4th overall running back in this class, well ahead of Jonah Coleman. We'll get to Nick Singleton, ahead of Mike Washington here as well. Last thing I'll say about McGowan, I believe he's like really old. I think he's like 25 already. I mean, it's old.
Turns 25 in October.
Turns 25 in October. Okay.
Hey, this is a total tangent, but I got to ask you, Renner, because I just got killed on Twitter for saying that I think that Chris Rodriguez will be the lead back over Bhayshul Tuten in Jacksonville. I mean, destroyed. Just like, I can't even believe how passionate these people are about a 4th-round pick who had 386 yards as a rookie. But there is a Bhayshul Tuten hive that is really pissed off at me. And where would Bhayshul Tuten be in this draft? We know that last year it was a great draft for running backs.
Yes.
Where would you have Bhayshul Tuten in this draft?
Honestly, I think he would be RB3 for me in this draft.
Okay. Look, I thought that I was a Bhayshul Tuten supporter, but I am no Bhayshul Tuten supporter in comparison to these other people.
I wasn't huge either. I'm just, this draft.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not even sure that Renner had Tuten that high in his ranks last year, but it just speaks to this class that now he would have him as the 3rd running back in this class.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to one that went very high in our rookie draft to Daigle, which I think raised some eyebrows. Emmett Johnson, 5'10", 202 out of Nebraska. Now, I think there might be a little bit of a dichotomy here, Renner, between fantasy and real life, because this guy catches the football at an outrageous rate, and that is obviously very, very valuable in fantasy. In real life, maybe not. Maybe NFL teams don't value that as much. Renner's coming at this more from a real life perspective. So, Renner, go ahead on Emmett Johnson.
I have him in my F tier here. Few reasons why. One is he's just a very average athlete, undersized, 202 pounds, and his testing numbers 4.56, 35.5-inch vertical, 10-foot broad jump, 7.32 3-cone are just that of these are pedestrian numbers for a running back, for a undersized running back. And then unlike Jadarian Price, right, who is about the same size, he doesn't run hard between the tackles. He is timid between the tackles. Creative runner, though, there is tackle breaking ability all over his tape. And you see a guy who has good contact balance. I just worry about what does contact balance look like when you're 202 pounds and not particularly strong or particularly explosive at the NFL level. It's like that. It gets a lot harder to break tackles. And oftentimes breaking tackles in the NFL just looks like running through someone's arms, right? It doesn't look like making a guy completely miss. They're too good at tackling NFL linebackers and NFL safeties. So for all those reasons, I didn't see a guy with an NFL translatable running style. I saw a guy who's very much going to be a committee back, if anything. I don't see starter, but the evals I've seen on him have been all over the map. Some people are really high on him. I just wasn't quite there with him. I think he's more of a 5th rounder, your pass down sort of back that I wouldn't put on the field 1st or 2nd down probably.
All right.
Yeah. Slow and small is no way to go through life.
Yeah, the question would just be, can he be more than a 3rd down back? Sounds like Renner thinks no. Maybe there's a team out there that thinks yes on Emmett Johnson being more than just a passing down back for them. It is the offseason, of course, but thanks to our partners at DraftKings, football never sleeps. Early bird best ball is back. Get a head start on the season and compete for your share of $1 million in total prizes before the rest of the field even jumps in. If you are new to best ball, it is my personal favorite form of fantasy because it's only the best part, the draft. No waivers, no trades, no setting your lineup. So download the DK Daily Fantasy app today and draft your early bird best ball lineup now. Drafts stay open until the season kicks off, so sign up using the link in the show notes or the QR code on the screen to take your shot at a share of $1 million in prizes in early bird best ball. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most states. Restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com. Sponsored by DraftKings. All right. Let's go to one of my close personal friends out of Penn State, Nick Singleton, 6 foot, 219. Unfortunately, broke his foot at the Senior Bowl, which I think has hurt his stock a lot. But, he'll be back for week 1 here, I would assume. Renner, thoughts on Nick Singleton?
I had him in the F tier. Super intriguing athlete, right? We didn't get to see testing numbers, but he's 6 foot, 219. According to Bruce Feldman, the freaks list, he was a 4.35 guy and broke Saquon Barkley's squat record for the running back position there at 665. So there's high-end explosiveness to his game. And he's been productive since his true freshman year. The only problem is he hasn't gotten any better since his true freshman year. Looks lost in the passing game and just has bad vision. His big plays, he needs a big runway. He needs a full head of steam. If he has to really create on his own, set up a block, make a guy miss, chances are it's not going to go great. And he was just flat out not good this past year. I mean, they started giving the offense to Kaytron Allen, who's doesn't hold a candle to Singleton athletically, but he's just a better back. He just quite literally is better at football in a way Singleton never got, unfortunately. But the one caveat I'd say that makes me, if you are a Singleton guy, he's still only just turned 21 in November. He's still very young for a senior coming out. Maybe there is development to be had there. Penn State, we kind of talked about earlier, they don't really develop guys great compared to some other schools. So maybe there's that to buy into, but vision, the way he has it, I rarely see fixed wholesale. I rarely see that guy all of a sudden start to find holes in the NFL.
Yeah. I don't want to say throw out this season, but it was such a train wreck this season that I don't want to hold it against Nick Singleton. The running back position is so dependent on what's going on around you. I don't want to hold it completely against him that he was bad this past season. The entire team was absolutely atrocious. The other positive I'd say for Singleton, it sounds like Renner might disagree, but I thought he was decent in the passing game. He caught 41 balls 1 year, caught 102 for his career. And they used him on kickoff returns, which is like, hey, let's get this kid the ball in his hands. He's an explosive athlete there as well. So I'm obviously biased. I'm a little bit higher on Singleton than it sounds like maybe Market or anything else. But the broken foot's not going to help him because like we talked about on the rookie draft show, if he tested, he was going to test well, and not being able to test is going to hurt him here, his draft capital, I think, as well.
Considering how big of a recruit he was and how allegedly freakish of an athlete and workout guy he is, it's got to be some kind of a red flag that he couldn't brush off Kaytron Allen. I mean, he strikes me as a guy who's just going to be a straight line kickoff return guy in the NFL. Maybe at some point he'll get some opportunity and he'll run away with it because he is that athlete, because he is young and has some room for development. I think right away he's a kickoff return guy.
All right. Let's go to Le'Veon Moss out of Texas A&M, 5'11", 203. The knock on this guy, Renner, is just going to be he couldn't earn carries. He didn't get the ball. So thoughts on Le'Veon Moss here?
Yeah, he's the back end of my F tier. He's kind of the last back I could really seeing a role, seeing like a committee role at the NFL level, because I think he's ticks a lot of boxes you want to see. He's got great, well built, 5'11", 203, but like similar to a Jadarian Price. Like the guy's all muscle. His testing numbers were pedestrian though, 4.59, sub 10 broad jump, 31.5-inch vertical. Runs hard, one cut runner, very good vision, no nonsense, willing to run between the tackles. There's just not much exciting though. We actually did him I'm on the Shrine Bowl scouting staff. We did him and I'm like, he's an NFL back, but like he's an NFL back that'll be an RB3 for probably 4 years and then he'll be out of the NFL. It's kind of how I saw him. So but again, that was probably the last guy where I'm like, there's a role. It's just not something to get excited about.
All right. Let's go to another one of my close personal friends. We already alluded to him, Kaytron Allen out of Penn State, 5'11", 216. I mean, Renner said it. People think maybe he's not that good, whatever. He was good enough to take a lot of work from Nick Singleton. And maybe that is not an indictment on Singleton as much as it is a positive for Kaytron Allen. I don't know for sure. I do think that when it came time to like throw the ball to running back position, it was clear they wanted to throw it to Singleton over Kaytron. Kaytron more of between the tackle, bowling ball back type for them. Renner, what do you think about Kaytron at the next level?
He's my RB3. He's in the D tier for me, top of the D tier. I do think it's interesting. The gap in terms of usage between Allen and Singleton was actually bigger than the gap in usage between Love and Price at Notre Dame. Like Kaytron Allen got more workload than Singleton did. He was the guy they wanted to hand the football to because he runs the way you need to run at the NFL level. He's going to maximize carries. And shoot, he was more productive. He averaged 6.2 yards per carry this past year. He had 15 touchdowns, 1,300 yards. Like he was good. This just is not an athlete. This is kind of, I don't want to say he's this year's Cam Scadaboo. He's not that good as a tackle breaker, but like these guys don't go top 100 because they just don't have that sort of juice. But he has such good feet. He moves efficiently between points of attack. He has really good vision. He's going to give you a good short yardage back at the next level. He's thickly built, 220 pounds. There's just a lot to like about his game. He's just not a day one or day two athlete. That's it. And so of all these guys that we're talking about, Seth McGowan and Mike Washington, who have these such weird profiles where they weren't great athletes, but not productive. And then guys who are, maybe more productive, but bad athletes. It's Kaytron Allen, I know can play in the league. I just don't think anyone's going to be too excited to say, hey, Kaytron Allen's our starting running back.
So Kaytron Allen, according to PFF, Kaytron Allen was number 2 in PFF's rushing grade this past season among draft-eligible backs behind only Jeremiyah Love. That sounds really nice in theory. But then when you think about the backs that he was competing against, all these dudes in the D and the F tier, it's really not that wholly impressive. And then you think about, he was a really good college back, right? We can agree on that. But then if he doesn't have, top-end athleticism, what's the transition going to be like for him going to play against professionals, against NFL players? That's what concerns me. We don't have any testing numbers on Kaytron Allen, right?
Correct. I believe he opted out of all.
Yeah, he opted out of everything, and that's very likely because he knows that he wouldn't, that he would run 4.71 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I actually took him in the Dynasty rookie draft that we did, just based on the fact that I think that he can play, kind of, but I don't know if he can play in the NFL.
Yeah. There's room for guys like this in the NFL. Like, I don't know. I'm just coming up with this on the fly, but like Kyle Monangai reminds me of like a bowling ball guy that wasn't fast, but like gets drafted in the 7th round and can score some touchdowns, in the right situation. Running back is just so much about opportunity. So we'll see on Kaytron Allen. All right. A few more small ones to hit here. Desmond Claiborne, 5'10", 188 out of Wake. Renner, what tier would you have Claiborne in?
I have him at the top of my F tier because I know there's a role for him in the NFL. He is the most dynamic back after Jeremiyah Love in this draft class. He ran a 4.37, but he's 5'10", 188. He's just small. He's just pure space back. He's not going to pass protect. He's not going to run between the tackles. But if you get him the ball out in space, he can get you explosive plays. He's like your Keaton Mitchell in this draft class. And that's a valuable role on certain teams. It's just not a role that's going to see a ton of workload. So that's why I have him in the F tier, but I have him ahead of guys where I'm like, I know I'm getting something out of Damon Claiborne. I don't know what I'm getting out of necessarily the guys below him.
All right. We mentioned Tennessee as tough evals. Navy is also going to be a tough eval. Eli Heidenreich, 6 foot, 198. Really good receiving production, but obviously this whole Navy thing is a little bit weird. Renner, what do you think about Heidenreich?
I'm at the back end of my D tier. He's the last guy in my D tier because this guy's just good. He's just a good football player. He had 51 catches for 941 yards this past year and 6 scores, 77 rushing attempts for 499. Navy's offense, whatever, triple option, hard to really project. But as a receiver, like if I just called him a wide receiver and took all the running back stuff out of it, I would draft him in this range. He gets open. You're in a 4.44. He has a 6.55 cone. The guy can turn, he can run routes, he can shake. And I am curious what he'll be when he doesn't have to put in the miles and the sort of training that it takes to be in the Navy and can just focus on being an explosive athlete, right? Because I think that's where he lacked. And you see it on a lot of Navy guys. The explosiveness, it's hard. They have to run, however many miles it is a day. They have to have a different sort of conditioning. That's why they don't have like 300-pound offensive linemen, right? Than the average NFL player. So if he just gets to focus on that, will he be more explosive? Will he have a little bit more play strength to him? Because at 6 foot 198, he's not really a running back. He's really just a third down back at that point. But he's the best third down back in this class. And he truly could be much more than that at the next level if you saw him, again, get a little bit stronger, get a little bit more explosive. The guy has really natural rushing and receiving ability.
All I can think about is Dylan Lobby or Lob, or however you say that.
Yeah, I like him a lot more than Lobby. I didn't love Lobby coming out.
Okay. Yeah. Because like these dudes they go to this weird small school and they catch a zillion passes and then it's like, wow, weird to see what he does in the NFL. Yeah. Yeah.
Levitan, you have repeatedly called the Navy weird in this show.
Just their football program, just the way they run their offense in the football program.
This whole Navy thing is just a little bit weird.
All right. How many we have left here? We have one left. It is another kind of different profile. Adam Randall. You don't see running backs this tall very often. 6'3", 232. Now, converted from wide receiver to running back. And all that profile always intrigues me in fantasy, Renner, because if guys are good enough to play wide receiver at some point in their career, well, I assume they can really catch the football. So Adam Randall at 6'3", 232, wide receiver to running back. That's a super interesting profile for fantasy. What do you think about Mr. Randall out of Clemson?
He's unique. I couldn't really get a handle on this guy because I went back and watched his receiver tape and I'm like, this is terrible. I don't know how he was even seeing the football field. I'm not surprised they moved him to running back. And even after he moved to running back, he dropped 9 balls the past 2 years. Like he's really not a natural receiver. That's obviously why he moved to running back, but he runs hard. His vision's not good. Not surprising though. I mean, it's hard. Like it takes a while to really know how to run between the tackles, but he'll stick his nose in it. And he's 232 and he ran a 4.5 and he has a 10.4 broad jump. Like there's real ability there to be a pile mover, to be a short yardage guy. He did 26 bench press reps at the combine. Like he is an ox of a running back. And he was kind of productive at Clemson. Like 1 year of really being the lead dog there, productive in it. I'm just curious to how his game will advance as he gets more reps, because he's only a fourth-year guy, only 2 years at running back. I think there is untapped potential there. So I had him actually just behind Damon Claiborne in the F tier still, because there was so much odd to his profile, but top 10 back.
Okay. I mean, this class, if we had done this exercise last year and we did this show last year, we did not do it in tier form, there would have been guys all over the A, B, C tier last year. It speaks to this class that Renner only has 2 guys, Jeremiyah Love in the S tier, Jadarian Price in the B tier, in any of the top 4 tiers. No one in C for Renner. In D, it went Kaytron Allen, McGowan, Washington, Heidenreich, and then in the F tier, like round 5 pick or later for Renner, Claiborne, Randall, Jonah Coleman, Nick Singleton, Johnson, and Moss. So one thing that I've been thinking about with this class is incumbents are going to be more safe. You know, a lot of times we see during the fantasy season, rookies come on late. They take the job from the incumbent after the bye. It strikes me as way less likely this year that incumbents are going to be threatened and lose their jobs. So just something I've been thinking about while drafting early on here. All right. We'll be back for quarterback and tight ends on the next show. Renner, tell the people where they can find you and where they can find your work.
You can find me on X at Mike Renner _. You can find my draft board over at cbssports.com, or you can find my podcast by searching for Pushing the Pile.
All right. Be sure you're following all the things of Mike Renner. For Renner, for Silva, for producer Luke, for producer Ryan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.